Use the figures to find the area of the right triangle. So since I want to find the area of this triangle, I need to recall the area formula of a triangle, which is the base times the height, and that quantity divided by 2. So we know we're going to end up using that. So in order to use this formula, I need to know the base and I need to know the height. So if I consider this side to be my base, well, then that means I need to find this side, which is the height. If you recall, the base and the height must form a 90-degree angle. Right? The height has to be perpendicular to the base, meaning it forms a 90-degree angle. And this symbol here means this is a 90-degree angle. If I were to consider 13 to be the height, it will not work, because if 5 is my base, I can see that the angle formed between these two sides is less than 90 degrees. And similarly, if I were to consider this side my height, or my base, I can see that this angle is not 90 degrees as well. So the only option that we have is to use these two sides here. Because these two form a 90-degree angle, we can use this as the base and this is the height. So how do we find this height? Well, we have a right triangle, and if you have a right triangle and you're only missing one side length, we can use Pythagorean theorem to find that missing side length. And the way we do that is we're going to create the squares off of each side. So this is a side of 5, so I'm going to create a square. And since I'm making a square, that means that since this is length 5, this is also length 5. And if I find its area, it'd be 25. So the area of this square is 25. This area here is length h. This is also length h. But since I don't know this length, I'm not going to find that area just yet. And I'm going to create this square here. Since this is 13, I know, and I'm creating a square, this is going to be 13. So the area would be 169 for this square. Now, the relationship between these three areas is that the squares of the legs, the ones that form the 90-degree angles, these two squares, these areas will add up to this area. But since I don't know what this area is, but I do know these two, well, I can simply find this because these three are all related. These two areas add up to 169. So therefore, since I know the result I want, I can find this area by finding the difference of these two. So I would do 169 minus 25. And we would get 169 minus 25. And we get 144. So that's the area of this square. But we don't want the area, we want the height. And the height is one of the sides of this square. So if you know the area of a square, what you can do is take the square root of that number, or the square root of the area, and that will give you the length of one of the sides, which in this case is 12. So I know that h, or my height, is 12. So one thing to do when you find a result is to go back and see, did you actually answer what we were trying to find? Because a lot of times we're tempted to stop the math problem once we find some answer. But this is only part of the solution. Here it says, use the figure to find the area of the right triangle. So recall that we said that to get the area, you need the base and the height. So all this work we did was simply to find the height. And the height is 12. Now that we know the height, and we already knew the base, we can simply substitute these two values into our formula and find the area of our triangle. So what I would do next is say the area is the base times the height, all divided by 2. Then I would substitute my values. The base of my triangle was 5. The height was 12. And that quantity is divided by 2. So I get area equals 5 times 12, which is 60 over 2. And then lastly, I get, when I simplify this, I get 30. And since I'm not given any unit of measurement like inches, centimeters, meters, we would just say units. So the area of this triangle would be 30 units squared.